shadows across first speaker Lasara's iridescent skin as she stared at the holographic readouts. The numbers hadn't changed in the past hour, but she kept checking anyway, hoping against hope that she'd made a mistake in her calculations. The atmospheric processors were failing, and with them, the survival of 12 million Etherians hung in the balance. First speaker, her aide, Nexus, materialized beside her, their transparent form rippling with anxious colors. The Grand Coalition has responded to our emergency broadcast. Lasara's bioluminescent patterns flickered with hope. The Coalition represented the most advanced species in known space. Surely they would help. The message played in the air between them, and Lasara's hope died as quickly as it had risen. The Coalition's representative, a being of pure energy, spoke with careful diplomatic precision. While we sympathize with Haven Colony's situation, direct intervention risks contaminating your developing civilization with advanced technology. We recommend evacuation to your homeworld. They know that's impossible. Nexus's colors shifted to deep indigo, anger. Our population is too large for evacuation, and our homeworld can't support more refugees. Lasara moved to the observation dome, looking out at her people's greatest achievement. Haven Colony was a marvel of bioengineering, a perfect synthesis of technology and natural growth. The crystalline structures weren't built so much as cultivated, guided by generations of Etherian knowledge. Now all of it, along with millions of lives, would be lost unless they found help within the next 30 days. What about the Meridians? Nexus suggested. They're closer to our technology level. Already asked. They're dealing with their own crisis in the Carina sector. Lasara's patterns formed the complex swirls of deep thought. There was one other option, but even suggesting it would be controversial. The humans, she said finally. Nexus's form became almost completely transparent, the Etherian equivalent of turning pale. The Deathworlders? First speaker, they're barely past planetary civilization. They still use chemical rockets for some of their ships. They're also the only species in known space who went from planetary flights to colonial expansion in less than a century, Lasara countered. Their drive to survive against impossible odds is legendary. Did you know their homeworld has active geological activity? They build cities knowing the ground beneath might tear itself apart. But they're so. Nexus struggled for a diplomatic term, physical. It was true. Humans were solid, dense creatures evolved under crushing gravity by Etherian standards. Where Etherians were beings of semi-solid light and energy, humans were made of heavy elements, with thick bones and powerful muscles. Their very presence made many species uncomfortable. We need physical now, Lasara said. Our processors are failing at the molecular level. We need beings who can work with solid matter, who understand survival against natural forces. She moved to the communications array. And most importantly, we need someone who won't be stopped by coalition disapproval. The emergency broadcast was simple, to any human vessels. This is Haven Colony. We face complete atmospheric failure within 30 days. Our technology level is within sharing protocols. We request immediate assistance. Payment negotiable. Hours passed. Lasara watched her people going about their daily routines in the streets below, unaware of how precarious their existence had become. The processors had been functioning perfectly for 3 centuries. No one had expected them to develop cascade failures in multiple sectors simultaneously. The response, when it came, was characteristically human, brief and direct. Haven Colony, this is Captain Isabella Martinez of the Earth ship Hyperion. Message received. We have atmospheric engineering experience from Mars terraforming project. Currently 6 days out at maximum burn. Hold position. Help is coming. 6 days? Nexus's patterns showed disbelief. That's impossible. They'd have to be pushing their engines beyond safe limits. That, Lasara said, her patterns forming a complex expression that translated roughly to ironic amusement, "is exactly what I'm counting on. Humans don't seem to believe in impossible." She composed a response, accepting their help, then turned to Nexus. "Prepare the landing facilities. And start calculating how to explain this to the Coalition." Her patterns shifted to something rarely seen in Etherian society, determination tinged with defiance. Because one way or another, Haven Colony is about to make history. We're going to be the first Etherian colony to officially welcome Deathworlders as saviors. The next 6 days would change everything, not just for Haven Colony, but for the entire galaxy's understanding of what it truly meant to be civilized. Sometimes, Lasara reflected, watching the first hints of atmospheric degradation color their artificial sky, salvation comes from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes the most primitive solution is exactly what an advanced civilization needs to survive. Her dark eyes fixed on the swirling atmosphere of Haven Colony. The massive engineering vessel's engines were still cooling down from their emergency burn, 6 days of pushing the fusion drives well beyond recommended limits. But they'd made it. Atmospheric analysis complete, Captain, Lieutenant Raj Patel reported from his station, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. They weren't exaggerating. The molecular cohesion of their artificial atmosphere is degrading at an exponential rate. Without intervention, total failure in 24 days. Isabella nodded, her expression grim. The Etherians had built something extraordinary here, a self-sustaining artificial environment that had lasted centuries. But even the most perfect machine could break down, and when it was responsible for keeping 12 million people alive, breakdown meant catastrophe. "Ma'am," Commander David O'Reilly, her first officer, stepped closer, keeping his voice low. "We've got company. 3 vessels just dropped out of FTL at the system's edge. Profile matches Nexus Consortium ships." Isabella's jaw tightened. The Nexus Consortium, a coalition of species that considered themselves the galaxy's peacekeepers. More often, they acted like its hall monitors, enforcing their ideas of proper technological development on lesser species. "Open a channel to Haven Colony," she ordered. The air shimmed, and first speaker Lasara appeared, a being of translucent energy and light, their patterns shifting in what Isabella was learning to recognize as anxiety. "First speaker, we're ready to begin atmospheric assessment, but we have a situation developing. 3 consortium vessels have entered the system." Lasara's patterns turbulent. The consortium claims we're violating development protocols by accepting human assistance. They're demanding we refuse your help. "With all due respect to the consortium," Isabella replied, a slight edge in her voice, "we were invited here legally, and we're not leaving 12 million people to die because some bureaucrats think we're too primitive to help." A new signal cut through their conversation, the consortium flagship demanding immediate communication. Isabella straightened her uniform and nodded to O'Reilly to put them through. The hologram shifted to show a Meridian, a tall, willowy being with silver skin and multiple arms. "This is Overseer Vex of the Nexus Consortium. Human vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Development Protocol 47B. The Etherian civilization has not yet reached the required technological benchmarks for interaction with." "Overseer," Isabella interrupted, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd grown up in the Martian colonies, where every breath depended on human ingenuity. "I have 12 million people about to lose their atmosphere. I've got a crew of engineers who help terraform Mars, and I've got exactly 0 patience for bureaucratic obstacles to saving lives. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to help these people, and you're going to watch us do it." "Captain Martinez," Vex's tone grew colder, "if you proceed, there will be consequences. Earth's application for consortium membership will be permanently rejected." Isabella laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Overseer, Earth submitted that application as a courtesy. We've been exploring space for less than 2 centuries, and we've already established self-sustaining colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan, some of the most hostile environments in our solar system. We did it without your help, and we'll keep doing it with or without your approval." She turned to her crew. "Engineering Team Alpha, prepare for atmospheric insertion. Medical Team, coordinate with Haven Colony for emergency protocols. Security, maintain defensive positions but do not engage unless fired upon." Her orders rang across the bridge with practiced precision. "You cannot simply ignore consortium authority," Vex insisted. "Watch me," Isabella replied, closing the channel. She turned back to Lasara's hologram. "First speaker, I apologize for the diplomatic situation, but we need to move fast. Request permission to deploy our atmospheric engineering teams." Lasara's patterns formed what Isabella interpreted as relief. "Permission granted, Captain. And, thank you." Few would stand against the consortium so directly. "The consortium forgets something fundamental about humans," Isabella said, watching as her engineering teams prepared their equipment. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day, developed technology that everyone said was impossible, and reached the stars through sheer stubbornness. Telling us something can't be done? That's practically a guarantee we'll do it." The next hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers in specialized environmental suits worked alongside Etherian scientists, their different approaches to technology creating initial confusion that quickly evolved into innovation. The humans' understanding of physical engineering complemented the Etherians' mastery of energy manipulation. But the consortium ships hadn't left. They maintained position just outside weapons range, a constant reminder of the political powder keg this intervention had created. Isabella knew they were reporting everything back to their superiors. Let them watch, she thought. Let them see what humans could do. "Captain," O'Reilly called out, his voice tense. "New contacts entering the system. 7 ships, running dark. Configuration unknown." Isabella's blood ran cold. The consortium ships were suddenly the least of their problems. Unknown vessels running without identification meant only one thing in this part of space: raiders. They'd been so focused on the diplomatic situation, they'd created a perfect opportunity for pirates to strike. "Battle stations," she ordered, her voice carrying across the bridge. "Recall all external engineering teams." First speaker, she turned to Lasara's hologram, "We're about to have company, and not the bureaucratic kind. I hope your people are ready to see exactly what humans can do when we're protecting those who need our help." As klaxons sounded throughout the Hyperion, Isabella allowed herself a grim smile. The consortium thought humans were too primitive to help the Etherians? They were about to learn why Earth's primitive technology had survived conditions that would destroy more advanced ships. Sometimes, being primitive meant being built to last. Seven ships, moving in perfect formation, their weapons already hot. But Isabella Martinez hadn't survived 15 years in deep space by being unprepared. "Defensive pattern Delta," she ordered, her voice steady as the Hyperion's shields hummed to life. "Engineering teams, status?" 60% of the atmospheric stabilization units are deployed, Raj reported, his fingers flying over his console. "The rest are being recalled now." The raiders' first volley illuminated the space around Haven Colony, a beautiful and deadly light show. The Hyperion's shields absorbed the impact, ancient technology meeting brute force engineering. Isabella allowed herself a small smile, their attackers had clearly expected easier prey. "Return fire, defensive pattern only," she commanded. "Protect those atmospheric units at all costs." The Hyperion's point defense systems activated, creating a wall of covering fire that forced the raiders to break formation. What happened next surprised everyone. The consortium ships, which had been maintaining their disapproving distance, suddenly moved into defensive positions alongside the Hyperion. Captain Martinez, Overseer Vex's voice carried a note of resignation. While we maintain our protest regarding protocol violations, the consortium cannot allow piracy in civilized space. Appreciated, Overseer, Isabella replied, hiding her amusement at how quickly bureaucratic concerns gave way to practical necessity. Shall we show these raiders why they shouldn't interrupt a rescue mission? The battle that followed would be talked about in space bars for years to come. Human ingenuity combined with consortium advanced technology created a defensive screen that the raiders couldn't penetrate. But the real surprise came from below. First speaker Lasara's voice cut through the tactical chatter. Captain, we may be able to help. Our atmospheric processors, while they're failing for long-term stability, they can still generate powerful electromagnetic pulses. Isabella's mind raced with the possibilities. Can you target those pulses? With human targeting systems, yes. Our precision combined with your targeting capabilities could create one hell of a surprise, Isabella finished. Do it. The next time the raiders attempted to press their attack, they found their ships caught in precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted their shields. The combined fire from human and consortium ships made short work of their suddenly vulnerable vessels. But victory came with a cost. As the last raider ship fled or fell, Raja's voice carried urgent concern. Captain, these readings don't make sense. The atmospheric degradation, it's accelerating far beyond predicted rates. Isabella turned to Lasara's hologram, seeing the Etherian's patterns shift in what she now recognized as deep distress. First speaker. The pulses, Lasara's form flickered. They shouldn't have destabilized the atmosphere this severely. Unless their patterns shifted to something new, revelation mixed with horror. Unless someone modified our processors beforehand. Captain, this wasn't an accident. Someone sabotaged our colony. The implications hit like a physical blow. The raiders hadn't just happened to find them, they'd been waiting for the colony to be at its most vulnerable. The atmospheric failure, the timing of the attack. First speaker, Isabella's voice was gentle but firm. I need access to all your maintenance records, engineering logs, everything. Someone wanted your people to die, and I want to know why. Overseer Vex's hologram appeared alongside Lasara's. Captain Martinez, this situation has become more complex than a simple rescue mission. The consortium must insist on leading the investigation. With all respect, Overseer, Isabella cut in, we're past protocol now. Someone tried to murder 12 million people. I don't care about political implications anymore. She turned to her crew. O'Reilly, get our engineering teams back out there, full protective detail this time. Raj, I want every piece of data you can pull from those processor systems. Someone's playing a bigger game here, and we're going to find out what it is. As her crew moved with practiced efficiency, Isabella shared a long look with Lasara. The Etherian's patterns had settled into something resolute. Your people were right to call us, Isabella said softly. Humans don't just help with technical problems. We're really good at finding people who need to be found. The stars outside Haven Colony seemed to dim slightly, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Someone had tried to commit genocide here, thinking they could hide it behind technical failure and bureaucratic inertia. They hadn't counted on humanity's tendency to ignore both in favor of doing what was right. The next few hours would reveal whether that tendency would be enough to save 12 million lives, and whether the galaxy was ready for what humans would do to those who threatened the innocent, regardless of species or protocol. Displays in the Hyperion's command center. Maintenance logs, atmospheric readings, security protocols, all telling a story that grew darker with each passing hour. It's elegant, in a horrifying way, Raj said, gesturing to a complex series of data streams. The saboteur modified the processors to look like they were functioning perfectly while slowly corrupting their molecular cohesion matrices. By the time anyone noticed, it would be too late. Isabella studied the data, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the holograms. Beside her, first speaker Lysara's patterns shifted in distress as they absorbed the implications. The attack had been planned months, perhaps years in advance. But why? O'Reilly asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. The Etherians aren't a military power. They don't control strategic resources. What's worth killing 12 million people over? The answer came from an unexpected source. Overseer Vex, who had joined the investigation despite his initial protests, raised one of his silver hands. Location, he said simply. Haven Colony sits at the junction of 3 major trade routes. Whoever controls this space controls commerce for this entire sector. And a tragic accident that wiped out the colony would leave this territory open for claiming, Isabella finished, disgust evident in her voice. But it had to look natural. No weapons, no invasion, just a terrible technological failure that no one could have prevented. A sudden alert from the engineering teams interrupted their discussion. The atmospheric degradation was accelerating again, but this time they knew why. The saboteurs' program was adapting, responding to their attempts to stabilize the system. It's some kind of adaptive AI, Raj reported, his fingers flying over the controls. Every solution we implement, it evolves to counter. It's like it's learning from our repairs. Isabella watched the patterns of degradation spreading across Haven Colony's atmospheric shell. The saboteur hadn't just planted a program, they'd created an artificial predator designed to ensure the colony's destruction no matter what. First speaker, she turned to Lysara, I need to know something. Your people chose to be peaceful, but was it always that way? In your history, did you ever create weapons? Lysara's patterns swirled in what Isabella had learned to recognize as deep thought. Not weapons as you understand them. But, there were the harmony protocols. Ancient algorithms designed to synchronize our energy matrices for large-scale projects. They could, theoretically, be modified for other purposes. Modified how? Isabella leaned forward, sensing they were close to something important. To create a resonance cascade, Lysara explained. A wave of pure energy that would rewrite the molecular structure of everything it touches. But it would require intimate knowledge of both our technology and our biology. Only an Etherian could. The first speaker's patterns froze mid-shift. In the sudden silence, they all understood. The saboteur wasn't just targeting Haven Colony, they were using modified Etherian technology to do it. This wasn't just about territory. This was betrayal. The coalition, O'Reilly said softly. They didn't just refuse to help because of protocols. They knew. That's why they tried so hard to keep us away. Isabella's expression hardened. Raj, start cross-referencing all coalition diplomatic visits to Haven Colony over the past year. Look for anyone who had access to the atmospheric processors. O'Reilly, get me a direct line to Earth Command. We're going to need backup for what comes next. Captain, Vex interrupted, his silver skin dimming slightly. If what you're suggesting is true, if members of the coalition are behind this, exposing it could destabilize the entire sector's political structure. With respect, Overseer, Isabella replied, her voice carrying the weight of determination, they lost the right to political consideration when they decided to commit genocide. Humans have a long memory for those who target innocent civilians, and we're not known for our subtlety in responding. She turned to her crew. We have less than 18 hours before the atmosphere becomes unrecoverable. That's 18 hours to identify our saboteur, neutralize their program, and save 12 million lives. A grim smile crossed her face. Fortunately, impossible deadlines are a human specialty. As her crew moved with renewed purpose, Isabella shared a look with Lysara. The Etherian's patterns had shifted to something she hadn't seen before, a complex swirl that seemed to combine hope, fear, and determination. Your people, Lasara said softly, you never wonder if you should help. You just do it. It's a human thing, Isabella replied. We learned early that survival often depends on helping each other. And somewhere along the way, we decided that each other includes anyone who needs us, regardless of what galaxy they're from. Outside the Hyperion's windows, Haven Colony's atmospheric shell shimmered with increasing instability. Time was running out, but Isabella felt a familiar surge of determination. Humans had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them daily, survived disasters that should have ended their species, and reached the stars through sheer stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Now that same determination would be turned to saving lives in a colony light years from Earth. Because that's what humans did, they fixed things, they saved people, and they made damn sure that those who tried to harm the innocent learned why Earth was classified as a death world. The hunt was on, and 12 million lives hung in the balance. But if there's one thing history had proven, it was that you should never bet against humans when innocent lives are at stake. Bolt of lightning. Raja's voice cut through the tension on the Hyperion's bridge. Captain, I've found it. The saboteur's signature, it's embedded in the base code of the atmospheric processors. And it matches diplomatic credentials from 6 months ago. The data crystallized on the main display, showing a name and title that made Overseer Vex's silver skin pale to almost white, High Counselor Meridax of the Coalition's inner circle. The Coalition's head of technological development, Vex whispered. He's been leading the campaign against sharing advanced technology with primitive species for decades. And what better way to prove his point than to demonstrate how primitive species can't save an advanced civilization? Isabella's voice carried cold fury. He didn't just want to claim this territory, he wanted to discredit humanity's entire position in galactic politics. First Speaker Lasara's patterns swirled with a combination of rage and grief that transcended species barriers. How many other colonies has he condemned? How many other accidents weren't accidents at all? That's a question for later, Isabella said, already moving. Right now, we have 14 hours until total atmospheric failure, and now we know exactly what we're fighting. She turned to her crew. Raj, you've analyzed his code. Can we beat it? Not directly, Raj admitted. It's too well integrated into the processor's core functions. But... A slow smile spread across his face. We might be able to use that against it. The next 12 hours became a blur of desperate innovation. Human engineers worked alongside Etherian scientists, while consortium ships maintained a protective perimeter around the colony. What emerged was something none of them had seen before, a fusion of human pragmatism, Etherian energy manipulation, and consortium quantum mechanics. It's insane, O'Reilly said, staring at the hastily assembled device on their main engineering deck. We're basically going to give the entire atmospheric processor network a controlled seizure. Controlled is a relative term, Raj replied, making final adjustments. But the saboteur's program is too deeply embedded to remove. So instead, we're going to let it think it's won, Isabella finished. Let it push the atmosphere to the brink of collapse. And then use its own momentum to rebuild everything from scratch. Lasara's patterns shifted with something like awe. Only humans would think of fighting poison with more poison. The plan was simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. They would accelerate the program's destructive cycle, but channel its energy through a network of modified harmony protocols. The resulting feedback loop would either restore the atmospheric stability or tear the entire colony apart. As the final hours ticked down, Isabella stood on the Hyperion's bridge, watching the massive energy conduits they'd constructed around Haven Colony's perimeter. One chance. They had one chance to get this right. All ships, maintain position, she ordered. If this goes wrong, we'll need to evacuate as many as we can. She turned to Lasara. First Speaker, are your people ready? The Etherian's patterns had settled into calm determination. We trust you, Captain. All of us. Isabella nodded to Raj. Do it. The next few minutes would be burned into the memory of everyone who witnessed them. The saboteurs program, sensing victory, surged through Haven Colony's atmospheric processors. But this time, instead of finding vulnerable systems, it found a trap. Human ingenuity, Etherian energy manipulation, and consortium quantum mechanics created a paradigm the program couldn't adapt to because nothing like it had ever existed before. The atmosphere above Haven Colony erupted in a display that outshone the system's sun. Colors that had no names in human languages rippled across the sky as molecular structures broke down and reformed. For one heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the entire colony would tear itself apart. Then, slowly, beautifully, the chaos resolved itself into harmony. The atmospheric reading stabilized, then strengthened. The saboteurs program, caught in an infinite loop of its own making, burned itself out trying to adapt to something that defied its basic assumptions about how technology should work. Atmospheric integrity at 100% and holding, Raj reported, his voice barely containing his excitement. The molecular cohesion matrix is actually stronger than it was before. Whatever we just did, it didn't just fix the problem, it improved the entire system. The cheers that erupted on the bridge were echoed across every ship in orbit and throughout Haven Colony below. But Isabella wasn't done. She turned to Overseer Vex. You have proof now. Irrefutable evidence of attempted genocide by a member of the Coalition's inner circle. What happens next? Vex straightened to his full height. Justice happens next, Captain. The consortium may be bound by protocols, but we are not blind to atrocity. High Counselor Meridax will face charges before the Combined Species Tribunal. And humanity's status in galactic affairs? Isabella pressed. I believe, Vex said carefully, that the protocols regarding primitive species require significant revision. What we witnessed here today was anything but primitive. Later, as the Hyperion prepared to depart, Lasara's hologram appeared on the bridge one last time. The Etherian's patterns formed shapes that the ship's computers had never seen before, new emotions that had no translation. You've changed everything, Lasara said simply. Not just for Haven Colony, but for how the galaxy views humanity. They called you primitive, but you proved that true civilization isn't measured by technological advancement. It's measured by what you do with the power you have. Isabella smiled. We're human, first speaker. We don't know how to not help when we see someone in need. It's our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. Perhaps, Lasara's patterns shifted thoughtfully, the galaxy needs more such weaknesses. As the Hyperion broke orbit, Isabella thought about those words. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as the primitive species from a death world. But they'd proven something important: sometimes the most advanced solution isn't about having the best technology. Sometimes it's about having the courage to try the impossible, the wisdom to work with others, and the strength to stand up for what's right. The stars stretched into infinity before them, holding countless more adventures, more challenges, more chances to prove that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't surviving their death world. It was teaching the galaxy that true civilization means using whatever strength you have to help others survive too. End.